Mark Matthews. Mark, are you here? Congratulations, Mark. The new principal of school number 14. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. We now move on to educational facilities. Once again, folks, we're grouping these resolutions, and that would be resolutions 820 to 835. Can I have a motion to approve resolutions 820 to 835?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Brennan, seconded by Commissioner Powell. All those in favor say aye.
Point of order?
Yes.
At this time, we generally
Discussion?
get an advisory vote from the student?
But we haven't voted yet.
No, we usually precede our votes with the student
Oh,
advisory.
but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were just we're about to have discussion, and then we'll take a vote, right? Is that right? Okay. So, actually, let's back up a little bit. It has been moved and seconded to have this discussion. Any discussion on these particular resolutions?
I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
823 and 824.
Okay.
We just got a letter from the Director of IT saying that the district either had or will soon buy an iGen 3 from Xerox, which will upgrade our overall printing capacity. So why are we contracting out these two pieces? Why can't they be handled in-house?
Johnny's Jerome, would you like to? You have to go on the microphone. You're on candid camera and you're being recorded. And before you go, Jerome, I never had a chance to welcome you officially to the district in public. Jerome is our new head of IT. Someone was tremendous that we stole from a private company here in the city. So welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams, in response to your question, we just signed the final documents with Xerox. The implementation and installation of the iGen over at the print shop is scheduled for the first week of July. So with respect to, I'm not familiar with the resolution. However, I know that we won't be up to speed with the new capabilities at the print shop until probably second, third week of July, and all the training has to be done with the staff. I'm not familiar with the resolution in terms of the timing of it, but in terms of our capabilities, it's going to be a couple of months out.
Okay. And trying to get an idea of whether or not we should, well, I don't know just how soon we need to, how soon the work will start on these two resolutions, and whether or not we could push it back, and that way we can move that work in-house as opposed to contracting out.
Okay. Again, just repeating the fact that I'm not familiar with the resolutions and what's entailed in the work with them, I'm not prepared to respond to that at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions or comments regarding resolutions 820 to 835? There being no further questions, we're going to vote on these particular resolutions. We'll begin with the student rep, Ms. DeLaus. How do you vote on resolutions 820 to 835?
Yes.
Okay. And now, may I have a vote from my colleagues on resolutions 820 to 835? All those in favor of those resolutions, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? Aye on all except for 826, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32.
Madam Clerk, did you catch that? That was a little quick. Could you repeat that again?
Yes on all except, with the exception of 826, 827, 828, 829, 830, 831, and 832.
There being a majority vote in favor of these resolutions, Mr. Superintendent, resolutions 820 to 835 pass. We now move on to procurement and supply. That would be resolutions 836 to 838. May I have a motion to approve resolutions 836 to 838?
So moved.
It has been moved by Commissioner Powell. Can I get a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been seconded, thankfully, by Commissioner Campos. We will now have discussion on those resolutions. Any discussion or questions or comments?
On 844.
Yes, sir.
in the 844 comes across as being sort of the low-hanging fruit. We have over 300 cell phones outstanding in the district. And this contract is for $250,000. I mean, given the constraints or the budget constraints that we face, having that many cell phones out, I think it's, for an institution where the footprint is just the city of Rochester, is, I think, way out of line.
Commissioner Williams, this is Resolution 844? Yep.
Yes.
We're not on that particular resolution, but that's okay.
Which one? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're on Resolutions 836 to 838.
Sorry.
That's all right. Any further questions or comments regarding those particular resolutions? There being no further discussion, let's first ask our student representative, Ms. DeLaus, how do you vote on Resolutions 836 to 838? Yes. May I have a vote on Resolutions 836 to 838? How does the board vote on approving these resolutions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye, with the exception of 838, 840,
We're not there.
838.
Resolution 838 is a nay?
Correct.
All right. Did you capture that, Madam Clerk? Thank you. Those resolutions, Mr. Superintendent, have passed. We now move on to Resolution 839. That's an information technology resolution. Any questions or, may I have a motion to
So moved.
move those particular resolutions to discussion? It has been moved by Commissioner Powell. Can I get a second to that motion?
Second.
It has been seconded by Commissioner Campos. Is there any discussion on Resolution 839? There being no discussion, I would then turn to our student rep, Ms. DeLaus. How do you vote with respect to Resolution 839? Okay. And now I want the board to consider Resolution 839. All those in favor of Resolution 839, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? There being no opposition to Resolution 839, Superintendent Brizard, that particular resolution is passed as well. Finally, we move to a category, ladies and gentlemen, that is referred to as Other. Again, with respect to the details of this, feel free to go to our website, which is www.rcsdk12.org, and you can get the details of these resolutions. But Resolutions 840 to 862 and 864 are designated as Other. May I have a motion to approve those resolutions?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Powell. Can I get a second to those motions?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Campos. I have a first and a second from the commissioners. Can we have some discussion, or is there any discussion on these particular resolutions? Commissioner Williams, you were concerned about 844?
844.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, perhaps John or Jerome, would you like? As they're coming up, we actually just put together regulations around cell phone use in the district, which didn't exist before. I'm sure they can add much more to that.
Can I ask the person who's got the cute little ringtone to, I don't know who that is. It's someone's bag, it's that bag down front? Because there is a bag sitting down front. Would someone from security in here, could someone remove that bag for us, please?
Yes.
Oh, you,
Is it taken?
I know.
busted, busted. I'm sorry.
Commissioners, several months ago, we started looking at the telephone usage. This was a concern when Jerome came on board. At that point, we didn't have any data about the phones, and as the superintendent mentioned, we didn't have a firm policy, or a firm procedure in writing about issuing phones and the process to that. We had some old documentation, but nothing was really being used to track that. Since he's come on board, we've begun to track the metrics, not only of the phones themselves, but also air cards, individual phone usage, and we're collecting those numbers, trying to determine the usage of the phones, looking for opportunities to reduce the number of phones that are out there. Again, these phones are with people, everything from teachers to translators, as well as the district staff, to help them facilitate their work during the day. But we are looking at the usage rates and getting control of those numbers, and we have some of those metrics that we could provide in the future.
Okay, but for this one, we're still going to keep, the resolution is to continue with the 300 or so, the 300 plus cell phones, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further questions?
And Commissioner, so you know, there are also individuals in the district that have cell phones that are required to have it either through grant dollars. For instance, our translators didn't have them before. Through the grant that we received, we had to give them cell phones. So in some cases, it's quite required. In others, it's a matter of really of being able to find individuals and find them, especially with the use today of Qs and BlackBerries.
So we are looking at it to reduce. That is a savings that we want to do, want to achieve in the future, but we want to achieve it without, just pulling phones away from people that use them as part of their daily business. So we want to have the data available. We've seen a variation across the number of minutes used by people. Some people work heavily on the phone. Others do not use the phone very much on a monthly basis. On those individuals, we'll go back to their supervisors and look and see if we can pull those phones back and begin to accrue some of the savings on that. So that is the plan.
Does that include, this money, does that include the messaging as well, like email, like BlackBerries and Qs? So it's not just cell phone, it's in the entire PDA that is used by many of the people who actually work in the district. The other piece as well, too, we've been looking at the air cards in the laptops. And Jerome has been doing quite a bit of work in finding air cards that have not been used. Let me give you one personal example. When I came into the district, I was given a laptop with an air card, a temporary laptop. When they gave me a permanent one, no one disabled the former, so we're paying two bills. One was not used at all, so he's been doing a lot of cleanup, looking for duplications, looking for laptops not being used, those who have not touched the network in a number of months, and begin to eliminate accounts. So while this may be perhaps a maximum on the resolution, Jerome has been doing quite a bit of due diligence to find savings within the operations here.
But at this point, do we know where the 300 or so, who has those 300 or so cell phones?
Not only do we know who has them, but we're now tracking individual minutes. So staff is going to see some communication from me soon, real soon, with respect to their usage and the patterns of their usage. Right. As a matter of fact, not only that, Commissioner, but tomorrow we're meeting with Verizon to challenge them on the rates that we're getting to make sure that we're getting the best and optimized price for what we're doing.
Yeah. Commissioner, if I may, just to, make sure that the public here also understands that, and really want to underline this, that when we talk about reduction in workforce, we've done quite a bit of work, and we have more to do looking at operations, looking at savings across the board. We've scaled back on travel tremendously in the district. Jerome, since he's been here, has been looking at efficiencies. You approved a resolution a few months back on the Lean Six Sigma initiative with RIT. We're mapping everything, looking for the best way to do things in the most efficient way possible to reduce the operations cost in the district. So quite a bit of work. I tell people that I have an MBA and I have a former operations chief, I've now two MBAs, who are business-minded people, because again, we tell folks that educators should not be in the business of running operations. That belong to folks who have degrees in that kind of area. So they've been wreaking havoc in a good way, looking for these kinds of efficiencies in the district.
Any further questions?
No.
Any further discussion? At this particular point, I would turn to Ms. DeLaus. How do you vote with respect to resolutions 840 through 862 and 864?
I actually have some questions.
Please.
And it's DeLaus.
What's that?
DeLaus.
DeLaus, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Just for resolution 847, I was just curious, what is the role that Pathway is playing in this particular situation?
Hold on one second.
Pathways to Peace.
Superintendent, there's a question. Could you repeat the question, Sarah?
I was, for resolution 847, I was curious as to what role Pathways is playing with this transition.
We're just talking about that with the commissioner, so timely question, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Actually, this is one of a grant, a New York State grant, and Pathways to Peace is just one of the groups that's going to provide support services to 40 students who are entering back into our district from juvenile or jail facilities, and it's to provide wraparound care and support for them as they transition back into our school programs, and also to support their activities out in our community as well. Does that answer it for you? Okay.
And I actually just have a question on the following resolution,
848,
848.
that's fine. Go ahead, ask it now.
As far as the resolution says that the partnership with MCC, students will be able to gain a high school diploma. Is that a high school diploma of 22 credits, or is that a GED?
No, it's actually a high school diploma, Sarah. And not only do they get a high school diploma, they're also getting a number of college credits. In fact, I highlighted a number of those students in one of the talks I gave at the convention center a few weeks ago. We have one student who's graduating this year with 54 college credits. This program only accepts students who have dropped out of high school and have come back. And not only do they get a diploma, but they actually leave with a substantial number of college credits as well.
Okay, and my last question is, Resolution 849, is this program just implemented with the city, or is this in a school, the teen court program?
Teen Court. Gladys, can you respond to 849, the Teen Court? Is that possible? 849.
I can tell you that I was very fortunate to start up that program when I worked for Bill Johnson, and we went with Judge Geraci to Galveston to look at that model. Cookie Waller, I think, still runs that program. The referrals, Sarah, are made by city court judges. These are actual criminal offenses, and I do not believe, I could stand corrected on this, but I do not believe there's any requirement that they be city school district residents. If you go through the criminal justice system and you pass through and you are arraigned, so long as you meet certain criteria, you can be automatically referred to that teen court. And as folks already know, it is staffed by students. They are the prosecutors, they are the defense attorneys, they are the jurors, but there is a sitting city court judge who manages the docket. Now, if I've been mistaken in anything I've said, folks can correct me. But,
you're very
but
welcome.
literally, you could be driving through in Rochester, and you could be from Brighton, and if you get arrested in the city limits, you will go through that system.
The resolution, I'm not sure, are we on 8?
We are on 840 through 862, so
Okay,
yes.
and my last question is for 854, I'm reading about the interpreters and things of that nature. As far as when students come to school, on their first day, they do have an interpreter with them. However, that interpreter leaves after that one day in the school, like, to help them set up their schedule and stuff. And often, I think that there's a challenge between the teacher and trying to understand, especially because the student still does not speak very fluent English. So I was just wondering, is there a set term that the interpreters are supposed to stay with the student, or?
No, there is no set term. Mal, no, this is not here. There is no set term. They come as a needed basis, but there's no set term. Is there a set term? Sarah, I'm going to paraphrase for you, if that's okay.
Oh, go ahead.
That we have students who come into our schools who don't speak English. They come with an interpreter, but they leave after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I've seen interpreters leave after a day and not return the second day.
I think the services would be based on the amount of time required to meet the needs of the students, but I can check with Mrs. Odell. She's not here this evening.
But I can tell you that it's a challenge that we are facing as a district, as the number of refugees in our district actually increases rapidly. Keeping up is not easy. Finding bilingual teachers who can meet the needs of, say, a child who speaks Urdu is not always easy to do. So we have a limited number of translators that we have, and they have cell phones. So they're called by the school principals to go and when they're needed. It's a challenge teachers face. It's a challenge that our schools face in dealing with many of our kids who don't speak English.
Yeah, I just think that, especially like on your first day of school, you have it for a day, and then.
I used to be one.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussions with respect to resolutions 840 through 862 and 864?
No, yes.
All right. I take it that's your vote?
Yes.
All right. And can I have my colleagues vote on resolutions 840 through 862 by indicating yes if they approve those resolutions?
Yes.
Anybody in opposition to those resolutions?
Yes, with the exception of 840, 841, no. 844, no. 848, 849, I abstain those. 852, 853, no. And 862, no.
Commissioner Williams, I apologize for the inconvenience, but I understand that the rules require that if you abstain, you have to articulate for the record why. Could you do that for me, please?
Right, I teach out at MCC.
Thank you, sir.
And my wife sits on the board of the Center for Youth.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, did you capture all that? Commissioner Brennan?
No on 850. Excuse me. No on 852 and 3.
Commissioner Brennan, I'm sorry, could you state that? I don't think the rest of the folks heard.
Yes, no on 852 and 853.
Madam Clerk, did you capture that? I should note with respect to all of these resolutions, and it is obvious for those who are here, but for the record, Commissioner Evans and Commissioner Elliott are absent for these votes. There being no, I should say, Superintendent Broussard, resolutions 840 to 862 and 864. I'm sorry?
I'd like to reconsider my vote
Wait.
for 853 and change that vote to no.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Powell, the clerk was talking to me here. You wanted to change your vote with respect to
please.
resolutions 850,
853.
853? Madam Clerk, have you captured Commissioner Powell's change in vote on 853? Could you review your records, just so it's clear for those in attendance what the vote was with respect to 853 now that Commissioner Powell has changed her vote?
853 was moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Campbell, and the vote is now 2-3 with Commissioner Evans.
2 in opposition or 2 in opposition?
2 in favor, 2 in opposition.
So that resolution does not pass. Mr. Superintendent, I want to note for the record that the clerk has indicated that resolution 853, there was 2 in favor and 3 in opposition. So that particular resolution does not pass. Yes?
And also, resolution 852 is not.
Resolution 852 does not pass because Commissioner Brennan changed his vote.
No, I didn't change my vote. My vote was
His vote was no. Okay. All right. So let's review for the record what the vote was on 852.
852 was moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner Campbell, and the vote was 3-2. So the resolution is not.
All right. So 3 in favor.
2 in opposition.
Okay. All right.
Majority of.
Absolutely. All right.
Commissioner, if I may?
Yes, sir.
On 852, the Encompass, just want to state for the record that this will substantially impact our summer program. This program does quite a bit of wonderful work for special education students in this district. So it is not a good day for our special ed students.
Folks should know that the business of the district continues beyond today. After the speakers, we'll have some discussion. The board can, with a majority of its members, call an additional meeting, as the superintendent knows. So on this particular day, there has been a vote that these particular resolutions, 852 and 853, do not pass. But that does not mean that further consideration cannot be made to these particular resolutions. And I'm sure we can find perhaps some resolution should additional commissioners have an opportunity to vote, or should we have additional dialogue. We now move to that portion of the agenda that relates to unfinished business of the board. On that particular agenda item, we have proposed military recruitment in schools policy. Commissioner Powell?
You're asking me to sort of facilitate this discussion? Okay. The, many members of the audience already know the course this has taken. Starting in January, the superintendent put out a letter to parents essentially asking them to do what hadn't been asked of them in the fall, which was to identify whether they were inclined to opt out of the military recruiting directory disclosure. The board took up that question at the superintendent's request through the policy committee. Originally, back in February, and the policy committee voted to take no action. Commissioner Elliott then sought to, trying to choose my words carefully, override the decision of the policy committee and asked that the board reconsider. So, in fact, it was reconsidered again by the policy committee. At that point in time, the superintendent's staff continued to advance its proposal. I offered a counter-proposal, and it was the counter-proposal that is in front of the board today. It's a proposal that, rather than do what the superintendent has asked, which is to abandon our opt-out policy, in fact, reinforces the current program by clarifying some language in the policy. First, it offers to really to underscore the importance of getting permission from the families and the responsibility of the district not only to send letters to the parents but also to get responses, to get follow-up when we don't have answers from the families. The most important reason for this particular focal point is that the letters do not simply address the No Child Left Behind military recruitment component. It essentially, and this is true of the 2005 policy, the language of our 2005 policy basically says that not only are we asking for information about recruiters, but we're asking the parents to tell us how they want information disclosed to colleges, to scholarship inquiries, and to employers. In other words, in 2005, we said the district, although FERPA gives us the prerogative to use our own discretion on releasing information, the 2005 policy basically articulated the district is not going to make a discretionary call on this. We want to know what the parents have to say. Unfortunately, the emphasis on getting the parent feedback did not materialize as was expected. So one of the changes I'm offering is to really underscore that it is an absolute responsibility of the district get the information from parents because we're not going to make that call for parents. And that is consistent with the current policy. It's just that I'm not certain the administration interpreted the current policy that way. Second, in the body of the policy, I include language that requires that the letter have both a yes box and a no box. When the policy was first presented to us in 2005, the example letter that was presented to us had yes and no boxes, and we felt that sufficed, so it wasn't necessary, it wasn't considered necessary to be that specific in our policy. The yes and no box is what is used in Fairport even after Fairport was required to change other functions of their letter, including a description of what happens if they don't get a response, the yes and no boxes continued in Fairport with no ill effect. They also continue to function that way in Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz has not been sanctioned so far as I know. As a matter of fact, the day after this issue came to our attention, I got a call from Representative Mike Honda's office alerting me to other districts that use this model and basically asked me to keep on supporting this, the current model, and informed me that Santa Cruz is a prime example that uses this model, not only of the yes and no boxes, but also mandating parent response. Third, the body of the policy includes language that would be required in the letter, language that would state that what the consequences of non-responses are. While the administration would have us indicate a non-response means that the military gets our information, my policy proposal is that the non-response phrase read as follows: the district may be compelled to give over directory information for non-respondents. In other words, we're going to keep track of those who said yes, those who said no, and those who did not respond. And the first responses we give to the military are those who actively sought a contact with a military recruiter. And only if compelled will we turn over information on non-respondents. And fourth, the policy proposal offers to clearly articulate that once we've received a response from a family, that response remains in effect until they tell us otherwise. So this is actually a suggestion the administration did make, that if possible, we collect the information once and then not have to repeat that process every year. It's a notion that I found to be a rather common sense notion, and allows us to direct these letters to students at the entry point, whether that's their 9th grade year or their 8th grade year. But once we've gotten the responses, we don't have to go back to those parents in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. So in short, the proposal does not change our policy, but only clarifies the language within our policy in the direction that was originally intended in 2005.
Folks should know the board has bylaws which require that a resolution first be brought before the board, then there's a period of time that must elapse, and then we have a meeting where we have a discussion about a particular resolution. In this case, Commissioner Powell's proposed enhancement, I would say, of the current military recruitment policy. So we're supposed to have some discussion, and she has led the way. I have a question, Commissioner Powell. You said only for the people that didn't respond. I think you said only if we would only turn over the information for the non-respondents if we were compelled to turn it over. What does that mean? What do you anticipate that means?
Well, I would assume, the policy doesn't get any more clear than that. The proposal does not, but I would presume that that means that the military has actually gone through the necessary steps to elevate the issue to the State Department of Education. At this point, after all of the noise that's been made, there has been no official move to execute the steps and procedures that are outlined in No Child Left Behind, namely that the recruiter command identify his official capacity as the delegate of the Department of Defense and the Department of Education as a liaison and come to our district for a face-to-face meeting with the superintendent. They have not made that request at this time. So for all of the noise they were making about not getting access, they have not followed the procedures stipulated in the law to compel us at this point in time. But what I really am getting at when I add that language to the letter is that currently a reader of the letter might not recognize that there are consequences to either to taking action or to not taking action. And by including this language, it makes it clear that that action is expected and non-response will have consequences that you might not actually like.
Any other questions or comments on this particular discussion?
Yeah. So is it an opt-in or opt-out policy? If someone does not respond, do we then send the information to the military recruiters?
Like our current policy, we have 3 responses possible in the database: a yes response, a no response, and no response. The initial lists that would go to the military when they requested in the fall would be those who actually responded, yes, provide me with contact, provide my name to the recruiters.
And just so that we're...
That's not the,
Right,
that's
right.
not the issue. That's not a problem. If someone says yes, someone says yes, we'll send the information. If they say no, we don't. The problem is, the heart of the issue is, what happens for those parents who don't respond?
We keep track of it, and let's go back to the first point in the policy. The policy change that I'm proposing makes it crystal clear that it's the district's responsibility to get a response. And if they don't get a response on the first try, they have to try again. And if they don't get it on the second try, they have to try again. So the point of keeping track of the non-responses is to know who else you have to go to get a response. And that was the intent of the original 2005 policy. Not that we have an opt-in or opt-out policy, but that we get answers from everybody. Because it's not just the military recruiters we're gathering information about. We're asking the parents, tell us if you want your child to receive information about colleges. Tell us if you want information sent to your child about potential employment. We need to know because we're not going to break the tie. We're not going to be, the board in 2005 said the district is not going to be responsible for exercising discretion anymore. It's the parent's job, and we're asking the parent to rise to that occasion.
Okay, but at some point in time, the district will have to fish or cut bait. We try once, we don't get a response. Second time, we don't get a response. Third time, we don't get a response. At some point in time, we will have to say, we aren't going to get a response. Then what do we do?
I tell you what, by then, the military recruiters will have gotten their list, and they will be happy, and they will go away. And they have done it in the past, and they will do it again, and they do that with Santa Cruz, and they do that with Fairport. The only reason they're angry with us now is because they didn't get a list of any description whatsoever. That is why we are sitting here today. Not because they don't like our opt-out and our opt-in. They don't like it, but that's not why we're here.
Well, if we get our general counsel to weigh in, what does the law require? Does it require an opt-in or an opt-out policy? And that's all I'm trying to get. I mean, to me, it's fairly simple. Either we abide by the law or we don't. Either we send the information, we don't get a response. Either we send it or we don't. I mean,
I know the general counsel is going to tell us that opt-out is not a lot. There's no room for opting for an opt-in policy. I know that's the general counsel's response is going to be. But what else is in that law is that the law does not tell the district how it is to collect its data. It does not tell us how we are to contact the parent and how we are to collect that data. And that is primarily why recruiters go away after they get a list.
Good evening. There's two laws that are involved here. One is the National Defense Authorization Act, and the other is a portion of No Child Left Behind. And what both of those laws say is that that the district is required to turn over student directory information unless either the parent or the student, him or herself, expressly states not to turn over that information. And one approach to this issue is certainly to make the forms available to students in schools. To be more, the district can certainly be more aggressive to make sure that not only the forms go home through the mails, but also that they're available at the school so the students themselves can make that choice. Because the statute does both, well, one of the two statutes permits the students to make that choice. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. The student, him or herself, could make that choice. But the law does state that in the absence of a response. A non-response means that the district is required to share student directory information with the military.
Okay.
Now that does bring up an interesting point. And I must tell you that Mr. Johnson and I sat and talked about this, and he strongly encouraged a notion he referred to as the Los Angeles model, which was an opt-out policy. However, they were very aggressive at communicating to their parents. The problem I have with that interpretation is our letter is not just about military recruitment. Our letter also includes college recruiters, employers, scholarship foundations. And as such, the FERPA laws pertain, and FERPA does not allow the student to the opportunity to make that decision. FERPA says only the parent or a student of 18 years old or older may do that. So although I didn't, the proposed policy doesn't speak directly to the question of students filling out the forms themselves, my reconsideration of my own proposal was that I don't believe that we should be circulating a form for the students to sign unless the students are 18 years old or older. It's because of the FERPA considerations rolled into this.
Let me ask you something. As a logistical matter, do we have to send a letter that includes everybody? Could we just send a letter that just does the military?
The reason we rolled these in together was the military was the one saying, we want to be treated just like any other recruiting entity.
But
that's why we rolled them all together.
But the No Child Left Behind doesn't make, that's apples and oranges now. They have a unique position here, I would think, when you compare them to, let's say, colleges. So is there some reason beyond the financial considerations that we wouldn't just send a letter to parents about military recruitment so the issue would not be lost to them? Why wouldn't we just send that letter?
Well, it would be a change of course, considering that what we did in 2005 was to articulate that we want the parents to tell us what to disclose in all respects. That was, in fact, the nature of the letters we were sending in 2005, 2006, 2007.
But again, I'd say it appears that this No Child Left Behind Act puts the military in a pretty unique position. And I just say to clarify it, we just send a letter that just says, you know, we may be compelled, if you don't respond, to send this information to the military and say nothing else about college. I understand the efficiency behind putting them all together, but let's just clarify the issue for parents and let's just send them the letter about the military. Let them opt in or opt out. There's no confusion.
Well, it doesn't resolve the question of whether opt-out.
Well, but I do think, my guess would be, and this is an entire guess on my part, that your response rate would go up. At least they can focus just on the question of whether they want the military to get information respecting their child. And now, it doesn't answer that other question, but I tell you what, I think it makes us a little bit more direct to our parents. We should communicate directly to them on this issue. I don't see why we wouldn't.
Well, let me also expand a little bit on we modeled ours essentially after Fairport and Santa Cruz. And they tie the disclosure question to the emergency data form. And the rationale behind that, as we do, and our policy states that, we tie it to the emergency data form because it's the one form the district needs in order to be able to contact parents. And the notion was that if we got a response back from the parent, both the emergency contact form and this permission disclosure form, that we would get what we need in order to be able to contact a parent when the child falls unconscious or something else tragic, and because this is the one thing the parent finds most compelling to get back to us, that the presumption in 2005 was we would get a high response rate by tying the requirement for the disclosure form to the emergency data form. What I found unconscionable in the actions of the district was that there didn't seem to be much concern or care about whether we got the emergency contact form back. Now, we're talking about high school students here, so these are students who, if they break their arm, the school nurse or the principal can say, tell me your mother's phone number so I can call. But if that child falls unconscious or something truly devastating happens, we cannot rely on the child to provide us that information at that moment. That we should care enough about getting emergency contact information from parents to pursue this to the last child, so that the question of opting in or opting out, whether to separate one form of disclosure from another form of disclosure, should not matter. We should have 100% contact information. In point of fact, Santa Cruz, when they don't get a response from their student, they don't get this form back from the student cannot take his seat in class. They're escorted back home, they get a signature, and then they can come to class. That is the degree of care we should be putting in, not just over a disclosure form, but about having emergency contact information for every family. No wonder we can't get a response. We don't even know if we're mailing it to the right household.
Commissioner Williams?
Can I make a motion to table this? Because it doesn't sound as if we are anywhere near ready to vote on it. It is still, my impression is things are still in flux. So,
Is that a motion? Because
Yes.
a motion to table goes right to the vote.
Well, there is no motion to consider. This is just a discussion item anyway. There's no motion to table.
All right, very well. Then are we going to just table or put this discussion down for another period of time? We don't have to make any decision today. We can continue the discussion, and I would say with all due respect, that's probably not the best thing to do since we have an additional 30 speakers to get to. I think Commissioner Williams is correct that there probably is, based on what we've heard so far, a need for further discussion. Any objection to perhaps having another meeting where we discuss this at
I
length?
guess I'd like to know if the intent of the question is the intent of the question to send it back to committee for more work? Is the intent for us to just deliberate amongst ourselves? Because that will happen anyway. We wouldn't vote on this till next month anyway.
Right.
I'm not sure what the intent of the question is.
The real intent is to move the meeting along for the most part. It's really to just to table.
I would
Others that haven't weighed in
I would
on
suggest that we send it back to committee, where if members of the board wanted to participate in further discussions, they could have them. If you just say, let's just talk about it offline, I don't know that discussion will ever take place in a productive way. So my suggestion would be send it back to committee, commissioners be informed, bless you, of the date of the committee discussion, and they participate in that discussion if they choose to do so.
Well, I am in favor of that because as I said, I have reconsidered at least one element of my own proposal, and if it did go back to committee, I'd have an opportunity to modify it, so that suits me.
Very well, that's what we'll do. We are now on to Superintendent Broussard. Before we move to the speakers list, and I promise you we will get there, I believe under new business, Commissioner Brennan has some new business that he'd like to bring to the court's attention. The courts. I'm thinking, I'm in another job. I got to take that hat off. To the board's attention.
It's been a long day. We understand. And to not add unduly to that, I want to correct what I think may have been an error in judgment on my part. And as a no vote for Resolution 852, I'm asking that it be reconsidered. And my intention is to change my vote. But before I commit entirely to doing that, I want to be certain that I fully understand the objections of my colleague who also voted with me with respect to the Encompass resolution. My reservation had to do with the amount of the money. It seemed like an awful lot of money to be spending on something described as academic enrichment and encouragement, to encourage self-exploration, character development, and discovery of personal interests, $900,000. And that was the heart of my reservation. So I can understand this a little better and cast a wiser vote perhaps the second time. I know that my colleague, Commissioner Williams, also voted no, and I'd like to invite him perhaps to share his reasoning, too, in fairness.
Primarily because, well, both for Encompass and there were a couple of the other contracts for consultants. It's just an issue of, are we getting our money's worth? I mean, we are in a tight fiscal condition.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that, well, my theory is instead of reducing the headcount, the first thing we go after, the low-hanging fruit, primarily the outside consultants.
Point of order. First, I just want to make sure we're compliant with Robert's Rules of Order. My understanding is, Commissioner Brennan, you would have to make a motion to reconsider.
I
Have you
do
made
move that
motion?
we reconsider that resolution.
Can we get a second to that motion?
Second.
That is, Commissioner Powell has seconded Commissioner Brennan's motion. We can now have discussion. Yes, Madam Clerk. 852.
Yes, just 852.
We can now have discussion on Resolution 852. Commissioner Williams?
Well, that is it, one,
Okay.
in terms of both the money and in terms of what are we getting for our $900,000.
Your concerns are very similar to mine. At the same time, maybe the superintendent could just quickly address, as specifically as he can, what would be the consequences of failure to approve this resolution on ongoing work.
Thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that back to the table. In fact, as we're announcing it failed, I emailed my deputy asking for the ramifications, exact ramifications. We can outline that for you. If I may also ask for the future as well, it's very difficult to put the entire scope of a program in a small resolution. Encompass works directly with kids as well as staff in our schools during the school day, during the summer, and after school. We made presentations, I believe, last year to the then called, I forgot what was it called before, Quality Assurance Committee on the program. We'd be very happy to do it again to show the efficacy of the program. So what it does really is bring the best practices of Norman Howard into many of our schools, from 58 to many of elementary schools in the district. The gains are substantial. The work is substantial. It builds capacity with special education students. When you look at those numbers I shared with you earlier, where we've not been getting the gains in special ed, this one program is the difference in many schools. And I can have principals come and talk to you and teachers talk to you about the quality of the program. In fact, during the summer, they take a cohort of teachers and train them over the course of the summer on great practices in special education. So it is a fantastic program. It was Encompass, I believe, was a spin-off of Norman Howard to begin to push those practices out into urban districts, namely our city school district. So the scope is extensive. It's a fantastic program, and we can substantiate the gains.
appreciate, first of all, that explanation and the concerns that Commissioner Williams has expressed. From our end of it, we're obviously, because of the cuts we're making and because of the hard times that we're experiencing, we're looking for opportunities, I think. And we're looking at a lot of these resolutions a little more critically and a little more carefully. I know I've had a very strong inclination up until now to give administration and other committees the benefit of the doubt in matters like this. And I'm going to in this case, but there are a great many contracts and consultants that we're using in the district that maybe we need in the future to be looking at more carefully. I would just offer that as just a general suggestion. But inasmuch as I didn't see the presentation, it hardly seems fair on my part to be responsible for syncing this. This would have been a little easier had there been a fuller attendance. So I do intend to change my vote on this and vote affirmatively, having perhaps made the point and expressed that concern. And I do appreciate and respect what Commissioner Williams has said as well.
Commissioner Williams, anything further?
No.
Okay.
Commissioner, just want to say thank you to Commissioner Brennan for changing the vote. And again, I will ask the entire board that we will be very happy. We also look for savings where possible. Now, we appreciate this scrutiny. Also would appreciate the opportunity to present some of the evidence, perhaps prior to a vote. So what time and place, we'll be happy to have folks come and talk very specifically about the efficacy of some of these programs.
I know we have anything further? I now turn to our student rep. Sarah, how do you vote on Resolution 852?
Yes.
All right, and to my colleagues, I would ask you now that this resolution, as a result of Commissioner Brennan's motion to reconsider, is before this body again, how do you vote with respect to Resolution 852, yea or nay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Madam Clerk, have you recorded that vote? I would also note again for the record that Commissioners Evans and Elliott are absent. All right.
Point of personal privilege?
Yes.
Because I know we're going into a session of our constituents coming to talk to us about the cuts, I wanted to share with the audience what I said at our very last deliberation session on this budget and repeat that to a broader audience. As you know, I chaired the Finance Committee and ushered the budget through the board, and the last question I asked each of my colleagues was what I call the gut check question. Tell the superintendent right now what it is that would keep you from voting for this budget so that if there's an opportunity to make a change, he can do that. At that time, I stated that, and to my knowledge, I'm the only one that raised the question about music and arts. And I stated that from the time I received the budget book, I went home and I pulled out my policy manual, and I was certain that I would find something in that policy manual that would protect our arts education program from being cut. And notwithstanding some lovely flowery language, there is nothing there that stipulates that we would provide anything more than the state requirement. I also stated that my children are better human beings than I am because they have arts in their education. And so my heart is with this, but I didn't hear any of my colleagues affirm that. I hope that we will hear that in the upcoming months, and that in individual and separate conversations about future board amendments, we can work towards restoring some of funds to arts education. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
All right. Now is the time in the agenda. Now is the time in the agenda where we hear from the citizens. The second time in this meeting we hear from our citizens. I should note, in fairness to my colleagues, and I can appreciate the spirit in which Commissioner Powell shares some of her views. We all have our views on this subject, and we all have, like Commissioner Powell, have had an opportunity to deliberate and to think through this issue of cuts. But again, because I very much value, I can only speak for myself, value the need to hear from you, I will not share my views at this time, because again, we're trying to discipline ourselves to listen to you all. So you're not going to boo me and you're not going to applaud me, because I'm just going to listen to you. And that's what I think the rest of my colleagues are going to do, because that is the purpose of this agenda. So again, I will repeat what I said earlier on. Just because we sit here and listen doesn't mean we agree with you. It doesn't mean we disagree with you. We're here to listen. With that having been said, I would remind folks there's a 2-minute limit. We have 30 speakers on the list. It is very important that you abide by that limit, not because we don't want to hear from you, but because we want to hear from the 29 other speakers. You will know when your time is up, because the buzzer will continue to ring. And again, out of respect for others, we would ask that you sum up your remarks and allow the next person to speak. Diane Roth would be the first speaker, and Emma Cox Lovelace would be the second speaker. Ms. Roth, Ms. Cox Lovelace. How about Karen Slattery? Karen Slattery will be followed by Ms. Hernandez, Shauna Hernandez. Ms. Slattery?
No, I'm Emma Cox Lovelace.
All right, very well. Ms. Cox Lovelace? Lovelace?
Well, I just said who I am.
All right.
I am a grandparent at Wilson Magnet High School, and I have a grandson, Denzel Cox, who you heard. He was the first student speaker in the way he played his music, and I am very sad that they're looking at cutting the music and the band and the arts. Music inspires. Music educates. Music encourages. Music motivates. And if we lose our music program, we will lose a lot. And the young people said it very well. I wish they could just all come back and go around again, because I think they expressed themselves very well about how they feel about their music. And I will say this. When we took prayer out of school, we went from great to good. And I believe that if we take the music programs out of our school, we will go from good to fair. In the words of Aretha Franklin, I say to the superintendent and the board, one of her songs, it says, think before you act. Take some of that $17.4 million and increase our music programs at our schools. And in the words of John F. Kennedy, ask not, I'm paraphrasing to my own, ask not what you can do for the budget, but what can you do for the music programs of our schools. Thank you.
Ms. Slattery, followed by Ms. Shauna Hernandez.
Good evening, Superintendent Brizard and Commissioners. My name is Karen Slattery, and I'm the proud parent of 2 elementary school students at Rochester School number 43. It is a wonderful thing that they have had a mom like me, but they have had a strong foundation of music, art, band, physical education, and good libraries at not only school number 30, but also school number 43. Victoria is in 3rd grade and is going to be going into the 4th grade math program, and she wants to play in the band next year, as her brother, Philip, who spoke earlier this evening, plays in the band currently. And he's also a standard bearer and an Eastman Pathway Scholarship earner with his clarinet, and just got accepted into School of the Arts for his clarinet. How will they continue and even have the opportunity to be great musicians or artists if you take this away from them? Isn't it essential to provide our students a reason to, quote unquote, discover the excellence within the Rochester City School District? When I grew up, I enjoyed school because of these quote unquote specials. taught by specially trained and certified teachers for these subject areas. We also need and deserve the proper sized rooms and equipment for these subjects. I want not only this opportunity for my two children and their classmates and friends, but the rest of all the children in this city of Rochester, which we call home, to have a strong foundation in an arts program and decent physical education program. I find it interesting, yet not surprising, that this district would have a gathering of such importance like this in such a small space. It feels like having many students in a way too small classroom. I am not the only parent here that understands the value of these programs for our children. Without music and art and physical education and decent libraries, how will our children continue to impress and inspire us at home and school and in district programs? I have I will summarize, signatures of some 80 parents from School 43 that would like to be able to have their children go on to music programs and have opportunities, not only here in Rochester, but around the world, which we have great diversity here in this room from many countries around the world. Let's be vigilant and have the sound of music and art and education ring through the world.
Thank you very much. You can just give those to the clerk. Thank you very much. Ms. Hernandez, Amalia Bellucci. How about Diane Stengel? Followed by Alma Bologna Rosen. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Ms. Stengel?
My name is Diane Stengel, and my son is a 7th grader at Wilson Foundation Magnet School. First of all, I'd like to salute my colleagues here in the audience who have far greater patience than I do at waiting more than 3 hours for our 2 minutes. So thank you very much for your patience and grace. Okay, the benefits of instrumental music. As Wilson is a math and science magnet school, math skills are extremely important, and there are proven impacts on math skills of instrumental music. There's spatial temporal reasoning, which is used in fractions and ratios. That's a proven impact on computation and estimation skills. And again, these are just critical to a math and science magnet school like Wilson is. You've heard other benefits to the city kids. It's a reason to come to school, feeling of self-worth in being involved in instrumental music. Gives you an outlet for self-expression, creativity development, problem-solving skills, cultural sensitivity for past and present cultures, and then a sense of empathy, a feeling of teamwork, the discipline of learning, of slogging through the practicing, the endless practicing that you have to do to become good in your instrument, the commitment and work ethic. It's also a therapeutic outlet. There's just nothing like music to help relieve the stress of the day and frustrations. And then not to mention physical coordination. The programs and instruments are already in place, and the costless part is already paid for. So the only savings would be to cut teachers, and this just does not make sense. With the class size in band and orchestra classes being generally twice what a normal class size is, you'd have to hire more teachers to teach the same kids in the normal size class. The legal issues include No Child Left Behind includes arts in the definition of core academic subjects on an equal footing with math and science and English. And the VH1 grants for students has a condition of full-time teachers in every school for having granted those instruments. So those are at least 2 options for you to look into. Have you sought other funding sources, grants, donations from businesses, parity with athletic programs, and cut further non-teaching positions to help pay for this? And lastly, the inequity with the strong suburban music programs puts the city kids at further disadvantage.
Thank you, Ms. Stengel. Ms. Rosen, to be followed by Ms. Funches, Melanie Funches, and to be followed by Nick Francesco. Nick Francesco. How about John Greenbaum?
I'm here. I'm Melanie Funches.
Thank you.
and I will only take 2 minutes.
Thank you.
My name is Melanie Funches. I'm the proud parent of children that attend School 50. I am highly concerned, both as a parent and as a citizen, about the proposed cuts that are being made to the district budget for the upcoming year. While I am more than sure that the concerns that I will express are shared by families of students throughout the district, I will limit my specific comments to how those cuts will affect children and other students at School 50. In a letter dated May 12th, addressed to Mayor Duffy, the superintendent and the board asserted that the budget for the 2009-2010 school year is a major step toward bringing rigor, alignment, transparency, and horizontal equity to our system. Funding is aligned with 4 key areas that support our citywide priority of creating post-scholastic ready students. 1, improved literacy at all grades. 2, improved math competency. 3, increased graduation rates. And 4, a safer, more secure school environment for all students and staff. I applaud the superintendent and the board for their desire to bring rigor, alignment, transparency, and horizontal equity to our system. However, I am deeply concerned that the actions taken by the superintendent and the board do not only not reflect this desire, but are counterintuitive and negate years of substantial published research that states that the areas are being cut are not just necessary, but integral to bringing rigor and to support our citywide priority of creating post-scholastic ready students. The following is a representation of how these cuts will affect my children and the other students at School 50. The budget as proposed will cut 1 5th grade classroom teacher, which will result in our 5th grade general education classrooms being classes of 33 students. This number is 7 students over the maximum number of 26 students allowed by the teacher contract. It is my opinion that 26 students is too large a number for students to effectively bring rigor or to support our citywide priority of creating post-secondary ready students. So, by this standard, 33 students is absolutely egregious. A meta-analysis of 19 studies conducted by the Center for Public Education states that when looking at the effects of smaller class sizes on minority populations, in a look at the STAR data, Nye et al. 2004 explored the long-term effects of reading and mathematics achievement for minority students. I will conclude in small classes that they have gains, that they keep these gains over 5 years. The budget also cuts in art and music teachers will result in no art or music for an entire grade and the total elimination of ensembles where my daughter sings. According to data compiled, the Americans for the Arts and your colleagues at the National School Boards Association say that the arts serve as a critical component for complete education, are proven to increase student achievement. And for many America's youth, public schools serve as the major provider of formalized arts instruction. Therefore, it is critical that arts maintain their status as a core academic subject within a school district educational mission and that they are adequately funded. In closing, I would like to say that I understand that in economic times that we are facing as a community. However, it is during these times that we as a community must decide where our priorities lie and take a stand that lets our students know that they truly come first. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I have a petition that is signed by parents of students of School 50 that would like to lead.
Why don't you give it to the clerk? Thank you, Ms. Funches. Nick Francesco. I would also like to note, while we appreciate the spirit and energy in which people make remarks, you hear the buzzer. What that does is it doesn't cut into our time, because remember, we're not speaking. It cuts into your time. And again, I know people are speaking from the heart, but it is important that we hear from everybody. And once one speaker goes over that limit, the next person wants to do the same thing. So please, it's a slippery slope. Respect the time that is allotted to others. You've been given 2 minutes. Wrap it up when you hear that bell. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Nick Francesco, and I'm the proud parent of a student at School of the Arts who is also the outstanding featured female of the Stars of Tomorrow. Thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to take my 2 minutes before you today to talk about what the arts means to the future of our students. And believe me, I know whereof I speak, although some people know me as a computer guy. I have a bachelor's in theater arts. I learned a number of invaluable lessons through the arts that have stood me in good stead throughout my life. I learned self-sufficiency. I learned to have a sense of my own worth. I learned my own limitations and how to overcome them. I learned how to write well. I learned how to speak well. I learned how to work well with others, and I learned how to lead others. I learned how to use my imagination in very practical circumstances. I learned how to hit a hard deadline. All of these things I learned through the arts, and they've not only shaped me, but gotten me to where I am today. I think you do our students, our community, and our future a grave disservice
and lasting harm by cutting arts programs in our schools. For many of our students, arts programs are the only places they learn to work in teams and to be leaders, whether in a band or in a play or on a tech crew. For many of our students, arts programs are the only places they have to be free, to discover who they truly are as people and develop themselves in non-academic areas. So many students today have no other outlet for expressing themselves in a safe environment, for developing their own ideas, ideas that will shape them in the future. Our teachers do a great job giving our students an academic grounding. Please don't take away from them the chance to give them that same solid grounding in those skills and areas of life that are equally important to our students' success as people and our success as a community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Francesco. That's fantastic. John Greenbaum, to be followed by Jack Motley. John Greenbaum, to be followed by Jack Motley.
Thank you, Vice President White and Commissioners. My daughter Sophie goes to School of the Arts. She was in Joseph, the play, last week or the week before. She's still humming the songs over dinner. It was an incredible experience for her. And I am really looking forward to her being able to develop her theater and musical skills in high school. And we are very concerned about the direction that the district is taking. I've heard this term right-sizing before, and I've heard it uttered by guys like Jack Welch, and I don't like it. I think we're coming out of 30 years of that kind of thinking in our nation, and we need to move away from that philosophy. What we do know is that as class size has gone down in the Rochester City School District, our performance has gone up. I've read press releases from the school district that, proclaim that now we've got a majority of our students that are meeting or excelling guidelines, state guidelines. So things are happening, and we know that smaller class sizes works. So what we need from you is a guarantee. We need you to take this budget back, and we need you to work on the budget, because we need a guarantee that you will not exceed certain limits in classes. We need you to look at it. The city contracted with the State Education Department. The Contract for Excellence has specific numbers. For instance, 20-to-1 ratio K through 2. We need a guarantee from you that you will not exceed 20-to-1 ratio in K through 2, and on like that. We need you to put that in as a constraint on the budget, so that as you look at the staffing, you take into consideration maximum class sizes. And then because otherwise we go to maxing out. We know that West Irondequoit would not do this. We know that Brighton would not do this. We know that Pittsford would not do this. They're not going to max out to their teacher contracts. And we're leaving the door open to that, and that's not acceptable. So we really are asking you to do a basic thing. Look at class maximums and tell us that you can guarantee us that you will push to do good on the Contract for Excellence numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Motley, followed by Glennie Williams. Jack Motley, followed by Glennie Williams. Mr. Williams, it appears Mr. Motley is not here, so you're on deck. Or you're on base, or whatever they say.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Glenn Williams. I have a grandson at Wilson Commencement, who I'm very proud of. Actually, I almost shed a tear there, but he's in 12th grade. But we're here today. AQE, I also have the honor to represent AQE, a local organization that has a statewide organization as you remember, may recall, a couple years ago, we helped get a commitment of $1.7 billion over 4 years to expand education so that we'd have a sound basic education. I say that because this misnomer that some people are saying that we were sort of out of balance. All the districts in this state have not provided a sound basic education, and we haven't either. When you look at a number like 34% graduation, I'm saying it was low like that a while. Now we're up to 43, 44, whatever that is now. Even 44, I wouldn't stand up here and be proud of it, because that means I can flip a coin and do better than we do with our graduation in Rochester. We're saying to you, though, we have worked with you and saw 2 or 3 things that work. We have seen that class size makes difference. Does it make all the difference? Professional teachers absolutely are critical. Good books absolutely are critical. But we have seen that the theory that the more time the kid spends being taught, the more likely he's going to learn. And class size smaller gives more time for individual students to be taught. And we know that concept works. It is so fundamental, it's almost accepted across this country, that the more time you give an individual student, individual teaching, the more likely he or she will learn. Well, smaller class size allows you to get to that kind of ability. And we're saying to you, we want you to keep small class size. I'm going to take just 1 minute to say to you, too, that also we deploy the cuts to art, but we deploy the cuts to social workers and counselors. When we have the greatest number of suspended kids in the county, we do not need to cut people who can help alter that situation. Too many of our kids need to be talked to, be reasoned with, not be just thrown into and I still say this, Mr. Superintendent, thrown into a room and done nothing with, or thrown out on the street. We still have too many people. We looked at that 800 people who got arrested. We're tired of that, seeing our kids getting arrested from school. We're tired of seeing our kids being sent to mental health facilities because of school.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Williams.
need programs that work and professionals in those rooms to work them.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
need you to
Williams.
help us.
Thank you.
you.
Again, I would caution folks to be respectful of other folks' time. We're not even halfway through the list. And again, my concern is that when you see somebody go over the limit, that makes other people think they can do the same thing. That's all right. We next have Jody Hogue, and Damon Meeks. Mr. Meeks, I know you're here. Cheryl Marshall is next. Cheryl Marshall is next.
I want to say thank you to everyone that's still alive in here tonight. It's been a long day for myself as well. I just want to say that, as a parent, we see certain things that work, and when you see things that work, you tend to feed on those particular things. And one of the things that we've seen in this district that has shown improvements is smaller classroom sizes. Smaller class sizes, along with quality teachers, makes a major difference for our children. And over the past 2 years, one of the things that we worked towards was smaller class sizes, and we've also seen an increase in ELA scores across the district. So that shows that, smaller class sizes along with quality teachers makes a difference. So in pushing and continuing that effort, we know that we've seen increased ELA scores, and we'll like to continue to see increased scores across the district. Here I have petitions of nearly 1,000 parents that support that as well. And at the top of this petition, it makes that statement as well. So I would like to give this to you all. And you
Just
can
hand
follow
it
up
to
with
the
these
clerk,
parents.
please, Mr. Meeks. Thank you.
And thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Cheryl Marshall, Ms. Marshall, followed by Carrie Petrichik.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for the time and the opportunity to speak. My name is Cheryl Marshall, and I am a proud parent of a 9th grade honors student from the School of the Arts. I don't see how cutting teachers will improve our graduation rates. The mandate by Mr. Broussard to trim arts programs across every school in our district by at least 10% is alarming to me. When my daughter was preparing to enter 7th grade, we looked very carefully at all of our options. We chose SOTA because we believed that the rigorous academic program, coupled with a strong arts education, would help her to become an outstanding citizen of this community, compete for a spot at a college of her choosing, and prepare her to meet the challenges of our global economy. In fact, really, we believed we were teaching her to swim in the deep end, if you will. When you start mandating across-the-board unilateral cuts to arts programs and demanding that all of our schools in the district are equitable and the same, I believe you are mortgaging our children's education and the future of this community. Cutting 7 teachers at SOTA appears to me to be irresponsible. It is clear to me that Mr. Broussard, in an effort to right-size the entire district, would like to throw the baby out with the bathwater and destroy a program that is successful by any standard. SOTA straddles many of the city's policies and procedures, all to the good of the program and the benefit of the students. The arts sequence at SOTA is more rigorous in academic coursework, application of theory and artwork or performance, time on task, and graduation requirements, more so than any other school in the city. The importance of having the consistency of faculty contact at SOTA is huge. Our kids' teachers, since they are guiding our kids in the arts, are ongoing mentors in a way that does not happen in other schools. Certified academic teachers certainly can transfer from other schools, can successfully implement the curriculum. But that intangible continuity of guidance and mentoring, I believe, should be preserved at SOTA. Our specialized art teachers cannot simply be replaced by someone with little or no experience. The other concern I have is by mandating that all classes have a minimum of 18 students, the AP coursework offered at our city schools across the board, particularly if a class drops below the minimum of 18 midway through the year. Will those offerings be curtailed? Certainly under the current standards that Broussard has demanded that will be the case. Clearly the number of offerings will be impacted by this mandate. This is a lose-lose situation for our kids. I'm urging you, and I will conclude here, to please pay attention to the staffing situation at SOTA and all of our schools over the summer and make the necessary amendments to the budget to maintain the quality of education. I suggest to you that you use the additional stimulus money to preserve jobs and the quality of education, and then over the next 2 years, take the time to be strategic with the cuts rather than simply mandating that our schools all look the same.
Thank you. Carrie Petrichik, to be followed by Alice Pratt. Alice Pratt. Hosea Taylor Jr. Are you Miss Pratt?
I am Miss Pratt.
Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to address you. I'm coming here with a lot of different hats. Number one, I'm a retired city school district music teacher. I worked for 33 years for the district. I was also a mentor. My other hat is I'm an adjunct professor at Nazareth College of Rochester. I'm on the staff of the Hochstein School. I'm a nationally recognized workshop presenter. I write a column on urban schools music programs that's published quarterly. But the most important hat I have on tonight is I am a product of the Rochester City Schools. I attended School 43 and graduated in 1970 from Jefferson High School. The music program that I received in those schools helped me become what you just heard. As my Italian immigrant parents had no resources to send me outside of the schools for private lessons, for $5 a year, I learned to play the violin with a rented instrument from the district. I also had a piano teacher who was my vocal elementary school. My father could only afford to pay him with 2 quarts of milk, a quart of orange juice, and a dozen eggs, as he was a milkman. My high school vocal music teacher taught me how to use music to draw in the masses and not just speak to the gifted, but to speak to the struggling student whose heart needs the arts. And I have story upon story to tell you about what happened when I decided to return to this district as a teacher. The countless students that came to me either through giftedness or through what they needed out of their hearts. It was a wonderful experience, and I owe this district for being able to have that kind of career. Also, I want to mention that my daughter is a doctor, and she told me that 97% of the physicians in this country played musical instruments. She also has told me that there's studies that show the benefits of music therapy on healing, and she is participating in such a study at Strong Memorial Hospital in the pediatrics department. I'm very, very, very conscious of the discrepancy between suburban schools and urban schools. Now that I'm in the college position and I go from school to school, it's just not right. And I want you to remember me when you make this decision, because I am who I am. I did what I did because of this school district. Those children that spoke earlier tonight, that was me. Thank you very much.
Hosea Taylor Jr. Hosea Taylor Jr. to be followed by Charlie Richardson.
Good evening. I'm Hosea Taylor Jr. I'm representing myself as a student and also a product of music. I don't understand how music and science can be taken apart. I understand music is elected to a lot of people, but I ran across a couple words called acoustical impedance. We know that we have a problem with our children listening to different types of music that's composed on the radio and such like that. It's a science. It's not just an art. I think that sometimes I wonder that if our teachers aren't overqualified or underqualified in music and art. But I see that I do understand that music itself and this acoustical impedance is a little deeper than I thought it would be just playing an instrument. I think that I don't understand why it's not put into the regular curriculum. There at Wilson Foundation, I don't understand why children have to play at 7:20 in the morning and not as a regular part of their character buildup. If discipline is music, and you have discipline problems where teachers can't teach, I don't understand why we don't use music itself as a better entity to get people involved. I know Soda's a great school, but what about the regular kids who won't have the opportunity? I'm from the Pittsburgh Hill District. We fight every day, rob, cheat, and steal. Music saves the life of a lot of people. So I'm just wondering what we're missing here. The mayor, well, I don't want to talk about the mayor, but we have an instrument drive coming up for our community Southwest. The guy told me the other day, don't play my music in front of the building. He's going to put me out of my house. I was on another property. I said, I'm the icon for safety music. But I just want to know, I know the money's already being spent, and I definitely agree with the superintendent, not his cuts, how he's doing it, but it must be done. The teachers have to teach better. That's basically what it goes to. And they have to relate to community, in which a lot of them don't. They isolate themselves from the community. So we can't help you unless you help us. You can't leave no parent behind. That's all. I have a program about that. We'll talk about that another time. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor. Charlie Richardson to be followed by Jan Angus, to be followed by Ellen Williams. Mr. Richardson.
Again, thank you so very much. And Superintendent Brizard, I want to congratulate you on listening to the community as it's coming together on your decision at Franklin. I do want to bring you some information, though. I spent a lot of time this week at Franklin. Number one, asking why we don't have parents involved. We have a lovely gal over there that's a parent liaison all by herself. She's supposed to have an assistant, but she hasn't seen him since the first time she was introduced to him. And what the real problem is over there is, I met also with the school-based planning team to ask about the Learning for Life, why it wasn't being done again this year. This is the third year that I've brought it to the board. You had all the folders on it, why it's good. And in that, the teachers didn't know that it was. The counselors weren't there, and they said that they had done them, which they had not done. But one of the vice principals, a lady, and I can't remember her name, says, I will take care of that. We need that. And the teacher says, boy, this would really help us. Well, it's not being done. So I asked to meet with the principals today. Apparently, Liaison made a meeting, supposed to be there at 9 o'clock. Well, I got there at 9 o'clock with her, and one of the principals were there. It was 20 minutes to 10 before all three were there. And they wanted to know why I was there. And I asked them about, number one, why letters hadn't gone out to parents and that, where there's over $8,600 in Title I money that hasn't been spent. I was told by, they call him Dr. Sam, I guess, Rodriguez, I'm not jumping through that, we're not going to use that at all. And here is Melinda trying to get a student or a parent body going that she asked in February to be able to have letters sent out to the parents, inviting them in. All this money is available for that through Title I. I have all the regulations. I spent time today with Cheryl Wheeler, who's your new director. And she laid out all the things. She says, I can't understand. Well, as you know, last year when I spoke at this, where the $143,000 was turned back in, that the schools that are not producing didn't use. But yet all the good schools that are up there have used their money. And please, we need to get in that school. Mr. White, I know that you are in charge of that school. We need to set some meetings and go in there because this money, it just shouldn't go back. And Melinda does need that to see if we can get parents together for this year because they got their budgets, the principals got their budgets back in November. And now here's the last week and not a penny had been spent.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you so very much.
All right. Jan Angus, followed by Alan Williams. Are you Miss Angus?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Jan Angus, and I coordinate the Eastman Pathways Scholarship Program for your talented RCSD music students. And I'd like to remind you that Pathways is part of the William Warfield partnership between the Eastman School of Music and the Rochester City School District, and was begun in 1997 with a commitment from then Superintendent Janey, with a resolution from you, the school board, that all elementary schools would have instrumental music. The purpose of Pathways is to enrich what is begun in the RCSD and thereby raise the level of the RCSD music program across the board. After making the agreement with the RCSD, Pathways spent years raising funds to fully endow our program in perpetuity. The pictures that I shared with you are of our 2009 Pathways graduates at our recent senior recognition dinner. All of these graduates will be going to college in the fall. 10 are pursuing a career in music, and 2 will be entering the Eastman School of Music on full scholarship as Pathways ambassadors. 2 others were admitted to Eastman last year. If the planned cuts make their way into the budget, in another 10 years, there may be no graduates in those pictures. Music is highly sequential and competitive. For students to achieve the level needed to continue in college, they must have exposure to access to applied music lessons beginning in elementary school. Pathways requires accepted students to be in RCSD music teacher classes and school ensembles and to participate in the annual All-City Festival. If you cut programs, the students won't be eligible for Pathways. Our students are from School 4, 17, 20, and more. Please do not let our joint efforts wither on the vine because of lack of foresight.
Thank you, Ms. Angus. Alan Williams. Alan Williams to be followed by Benjamin Hopkins. Not here.
And I think Ben's gone also.
Okay. Benjamin Hopkins to be followed by Celeste Shade. To be followed by Ellen Best. Is Miss Best here? Good. All right, you're on deck. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Celeste Shade. I'm a vocal music teacher at 43 School, and I've been teaching at 43 ever since I was hired there 24 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to be Sarah's music teacher. Let me begin by saying that I am very passionate about teaching my students in music, or I wouldn't have stuck around this district for so long. It does get frustrating at times, but my students have learned so much more than to sing or play instruments. They have learned about confidence and patience. They have learned about discipline and passion for life. And this is the kind of education that just doesn't happen by chance. It's the music teachers in the Rochester City School District that are dedicated and talented that take their profession seriously. The district recruits teachers from all across our country, bringing young people from places as far away as Puerto Rico. These teachers from Puerto Rico were told when they were hired by Human Resources they would be guaranteed a job for 3 years in this district, and now because of future cuts, they will not have a job next year because of the seniority rights that go across this district. Superintendent Broussard, you spoke earlier about the fact that there won't be as many cuts across for the teachers, but unless you change the decisions that the principals have already made, we will lose our 18% of our music staff. I'd like to tell you about some of the young teachers in our district that we have hired this year, specifically one over at number 19 school, Mr. Robert Faulkner. He has been one of the best teachers, first-year teachers that have ever crossed our city school district. And his job is trifold. He teaches instrumental string and vocal music. His string students performed at the Eastman School of Music this past spring. He was volunteered to be the conductor of our all-city music concert in April. And even though his principal has not chosen to cut music, he will probably not be teaching here next year because other principals have chosen, and once again, because of seniority, he will be replaced by someone else. So here's the bottom line. If you allow the cuts to be made in the music programs, our students will not have those opportunities. I would like to strongly encourage everyone to realize that the kind of music that a classroom teacher might provide for a student does not hold a candle for what certified music teachers do for them every day. And I'm asking the board tonight to please change your vote for the budget so that you passed last month and not allow the cuts to the music programs to occur across this district. Thank you.
Ellen Best. To be followed by Lewis Wilson Jr. Ellen Best to be followed by Lewis Wilson Jr.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Best, as you've just stated, and I first want to thank you for all your time and staying here this late. I also like to thank Superintendent Broussard for meeting with the music teachers, which he did last year when he first came to the district. I sent you each a presentation of what we had shown him, the concerns we had, the successes we have. And I'd like to assure you that I know we are all here for the same reason. We care about our students. When I called to sign up to speak, I had to identify myself as a staff person, but I really feel I'm more of a parent. After you spend as much time as I have, almost 22 years in this district and 28 in public education, you are a parent. You're a parent to those students. You're a parent to the new teachers. As a mentor, I've learned that as well. Also, you're raising your own children, and I've always used a yardstick like this. My own children, would I want this for them? If I'm teaching a lesson, if I'm advocating for a program, if I'm speaking up. And the answer at elementary school has usually been, yes, my children would receive a good education here. They have a chance to perform in choir, in band, they'd get lessons if they wanted them, they have assemblies, they can go to all city. However, when you look what is happening to limit our students, I can't believe the leadership of this district would endorse a budget that does that. We, at the high school, don't have choirs. Instrumental programs are limited by scheduling and lack of support. And unless you get into Soda, play at East or Wilson, it is minimal at best. So when we look what you may be doing to elementary schools, I'm deeply concerned. How is this fair to our children? How can we believe that this is in the students' best interest? When you talk about the 10% reduction, I know that it was not just made for music, but it was impossible choices for the principals to make. They were targeting specific areas: librarians, social workers, psychologists, art, music, phys ed. How can you make those choices? I ask you to reconsider the ramifications of this budget, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Lewis Wilson Jr. to be followed by Allison Scavaria.
Good evening. I'm here to discuss the proposed cuts to music. My name is Lewis Wilson Jr., and I'm a 2002 graduate of the Rochester City School District. I received my bachelor's degree in music education from SUNY Fredonia and pursuing my master's at Roberts Wesleyan College, and I'm finishing my second year of teaching in the district. I would like to thank the district for giving me the opportunity to learn music at a high level and for giving me a vocation that I love. Without the training I received in this system, I would not have been able to learn a musical instrument, much less find a career which I am passionate about. I started playing trumpet in 4th grade at school number 52. Eventually, I was good enough to audition for the Pathways Collaborative program with the Eastman School of Music, where I studied for 2 years with Wes Nance of the Rochester Philharmonic. All of our students need to learn to read standard music notation so they can compete at the state, county, and national levels, as do their peers in surrounding districts. Many classroom teachers are not able to read music themselves and therefore cannot teach music literacy to our students. One of my former students last year was at the 2nd grade reading level. Because of his involvement with music and the attitude of practice makes perfect, his reading level went from 2nd grade to 4th grade in a couple of months. Music did that. If these opportunities for music are not available to our students to the district, most of them will never have the opportunity that I had to know how to play a musical instrument, become musically literate, and find a career. I have built strong relationships with my students, have received rave reviews from my evaluators, administrators, and colleagues, and serve as a strong role model to my students. Yet as a second-year teacher, there is a strong possibility that I will lose my job at the end of the year due to the budget cuts, and the students will lose me as their teacher, confidant, and role model. I urge you to reconsider the cuts to music. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, should you help me pronounce your last name?
My name is Allison Scavarla.
Thank you very much.
Discover the excellence. Discover the excellence is the motto of our district, and we have some excellent, excellent students. I am a third-year music teacher at school number 16, Ms. Pratt's former school, in our wonderful Rochester City School District, and I teach vocal and general music there. I wanted to speak about how we discover the excellence in our students. Surely a classroom teacher can discover math excellence, reading excellence, writing excellence, but where in their school day, where in their cramped amount of time they have to educate our students to the fullest, do they have the opportunity or the resources to discover their musical talent? Music educators are uniquely suited to do just that. We provide a unique perspective on the students' education from pre-K all the way through 6th grade, speaking from my experience as an elementary educator. We provide a stability for students by allowing them to develop a relationship with us over a number of years, which usually results in a relationship with the family, with the community, that is missing, or rather incomplete, in the general education, where they only have 1 year to develop a strong relationship with that family and that situation. When you look at music education, often a budget cut area, you also have to look at how is it being instructed. Is it being instructed by highly qualified educators? The State of New York Education Department requires every year that teachers fill out a BEDS form, on which you have to state whether you are in fact a highly qualified educator for that subject. As a highly qualified music educator, I can proudly say yes. However, as common logic often states, you could always have the classroom teacher teach music by putting on a CD or reading a book. You can have the classroom teacher teach physical education by allowing the students to go outside for recess. I am unfortunately out of time, but I would like to say that we are, as it stands in our building, we're cutting 25% of our 5 ensembles down to 2, which is going to result in about 75 students being unable to participate in music who dearly, dearly need it. Thank you for your consideration. I urge you to rethink your decision.
Thank you. Don Sherman, to be followed by Lou Marcone or Marconi.
My name is Don Sherman, and over the past 20 years in the district as a music teacher, I've been honored nationally for engaging students in education. The J.P. Morgan Chase Foundation and Public Education Network awarded me for classroom innovation because I connected academic subjects with music education. In 2004, I was awarded the prestigious Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation Award at Carnegie Hall for outstanding service to students and the music education profession. I've helped students obtain scholarships to Eastman School of Music, the Eastman Pathways program, and brought composers from Eastman to Monroe who have worked with students to create their own music. I brought students to the Eastman Theater to perform with the RPO, and personally have secured between $30,000 and $40,000 in grant money and instruments from various donors and foundations for the benefit of our students. 5 years ago, there were close to 200 students involved in the instrumental music program at Monroe, but changes in the district, specifically restructuring middle schools to high schools, have caused an eroding effect on our band and chorus programs. As a middle school, students were able to assemble together during a common period for band and chorus, but as a high school, this did not happen because the required subjects for students were only offered during the same time as band and chorus, with no other sections offered throughout the day. When principals look at the enrollment data in band and chorus, they find very low numbers and can interpret that to mean a lack of student interest. However, that is not the case. Responding to the low enrollment, principals are cutting music positions. Mr. Brizard, you told us in the Music Council in a follow-up meeting on your office back in June of 2008 that you had a person responsible for scheduling at the high school level who would solve this problem. A year has gone by and students are still not able to assemble together in a common period for band or chorus. This is a tragic situation for our students because they are being deprived of the opportunity to continue their music instruction as they've experienced since they started in the 4th grade. Please fix the scheduling problem and keep music alive for our students. My 525,600 minutes. We've waited longer to hear from you. 525,600 minutes. Just give me one more and I'll be through. That's got to be worth something. My final point is that cutting the arts education hurts our students precisely when we're working so hard to improve academic achievement. Studies and research demonstrate that an education inclusive of the arts has a profound effect on literacy across all content areas. It has been found that the same brain functions used to decode language, analyze scientific principles, and solve math problems are the same brain functions used in creative thinking, and developing skills in the arts.
Mr. Sherman.
The point is that students who participate in the arts exercise their brains more frequently than those who do not.
Mr. Sherman, you
Yes.
taught my son to respect time, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You taught my son well, too.
Well, you got a great son.
Please summarize.
Okay, literacy and arts education help work hand in hand with both reinforcing each other. Denying our children an arts education will diminish their ability to become literate. And how can you compete in society without being literate? Please give our children the opportunity to participate in band and chorus and help them become more literate. Do not cut art education, but instead to find more ways to adequately support and foster arts for our children. Thank you very much for this.
Lou Marcone or Marconi. How about Stephen Lawrence? Mr. Lawrence? And then Adam Urbanski.
Hi, my name is Stephen Lawrence. I teach orchestra at Wilson Foundation and Commencement. I am a native of Atlanta, Georgia, and by way of going to school in New Orleans, Louisiana. And after graduating, I went to a teacher fair where a very nice woman reached over the table and asked me, "Wouldn't you like to come to Rochester, New York?" And I said, no thank you. But over some time and through a lot of research and a lot of questions, I made over a 1,000-mile trip to move my life up here where I don't have family, where I don't have friends, until now. I moved my life up here to teach children the very thing that I fell in love with way back when. And that's something that I've only been a teacher for 2 years, and that's the same thing that is being threatened to be taken away from me. The joy of being able to teach these children how they can have that moment of achievement. The joy of being able to teach these children the very concepts that got me to where I am today. I am currently teaching 2 years. I graduated with 4.0 from my school in New Orleans. I'm currently in grad school receiving my master's in music education, and I plan to do a lot more. This is something that's very important to me as well as many people in this room. So I do urge you, please reconsider what you are planning to do with these budget cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Urbanski.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The good news is that I'm the last speaker.
Yes, it is. You said that, I didn't.
And the bad news is that I am the last speaker. I think it was almost 2 years ago that I first met Superintendent Brizard when he was part of the Broad Superintendent's Academy cohort, and I was a presenter. I don't know if you remember, Jean-Claude, but I showed a chart as to what has the greatest impact on students' learning of all the factors that are within our control, because not all of them are. The number one was the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of the teacher. The number two was class size. It's simply that. National Commission on Teaching in America's Future. A report called What Matters Most, follow-up report, Doing What Matters Most. But like any good research, it confirms common sense. If you're a parent, you don't want your child in a crowded classroom. You know that your child will get more attention and therefore more learning. So I'm here primarily to support what you've heard from teachers, parents, and students. It's not about pink slips and layoffs. It's about whether or not children will have reasonable size class size, whether they will have access to music and arts and phys ed and libraries. In other words, all those things that when you cross the city line are taken for granted. This budget quite simply diminishes that access. And this budget presents additional problems. It jeopardizes the stimulus money, the federal money that is supposed to be used to avoid layoffs and to create jobs. I think that this budget will make it more likely that more families with school-age children will leave the city. So, I hear the buzz and I want to be respectful, so let me conclude. Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Brennan, thank you very much for not voting for this budget to begin with. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Elliott in absentia. Commissioner Campos, Commissioner Powell, Commissioner White, please reconsider. For all the eloquently stated reasons that the parents, teachers, and children presented. And I'll tell you, I leave this evening sad because after giving 40 years to this district as a teacher and 28 as a spokesperson for teachers, I had to witness once again that children and parents have to come and beg you for music, art, phys ed, and libraries. Let's make this the last time.
Thank you. At this portion of our agenda, we discuss very briefly, or we note for the record, upcoming meetings. I should first note for the community's attention that the board will be meeting actually in what we call a 3-on-3 meeting with our colleagues at City Council to discuss these and other issues on June the 8th, is that right? At 2:30. Additionally, you should know that on June the 10th at 7:30 p.m., there's a City Council public hearing on the school board budget. Additionally, I would note that on June the 16th at 8 p.m., there is a City Council meeting on the budget in general. Is that right? They're regularly scheduled on the budget. That is their regularly scheduled meeting where they vote on the budget. And on June the 18th at 6:30 p.m., we will conduct our normal board business meeting. I would also note that technology is the ruler of the day. Superintendent Brizard has already put on the website, the district's website, that PowerPoint presentation that you saw about an hour or two ago. You go to www.rcsdk12.org, and you can look at that presentation. Can I get a motion to adjourn this business meeting?
Sure can.
Can I get a second to that motion? Second?
Come on,
Come
someone's
on.
gotta be
Second.
for this.
Commissioner Powell, all those in favor say aye. This meeting is adjourned. Good night.
Oh, yeah, I gotta go. Yes. Take care.